Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I never thought I'd be the kind of man to hear those words, but there they were, sharp, cold, and final. You're just not man enough for me. At first, I thought I had misheard her. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me, twisting her words into something crueler than what she actually said. But the look in her eyes told me otherwise. There was no hesitation, no regret, just pure, unwavering certainty. She stood across from me in our living room, arms crossed, chin slightly raised, like she had been waiting for this moment. Like she had been rehearsing it. What? My voice came out hoarse, my throat suddenly dry. She sighed, as if the weight of my reaction was an inconvenience. I've been thinking about this for a long time. And the truth is, I need more. I need someone stronger. Someone who, she hesitated, then delivered the final blow. Knows how to take charge like a real man. A real man. The words stung in a way I never expected. They slithered under my skin, into the deepest parts of my insecurities, the ones I never admitted to anyone, not even to myself. So that's it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. After everything? She let out a dry laugh. Come on, don't act surprised. We've been going in circles for years. You knew something was off, but you never did anything about it. I clenched my jaw, trying to process everything she was saying, everything she wasn't saying. And I suppose you've already found this, real man, haven't you? Silence. That was all the confirmation I needed. She didn't even look guilty. She didn't try to deny it. In fact, she barely even hesitated before shrugging. Yes, and I won't apologize for it. You had your chance to be what I needed. My stomach twisted. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some drunken lapse in judgment or a moment of weakness. This was calculated. Who is he? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. Another sigh. Another tired glance, like I was exhausting her. It doesn't matter. He's someone who makes me feel alive. Someone who isn't afraid to take control. Someone who makes me feel like a woman. That last part nearly broke me. I wanted to say something, anything that would shake her, that would wipe that smug expression off her face. I wanted to remind her of everything we had built together, everything I had done for her. I wanted to remind her of the nights I held her when she cried, of the sacrifices I made to ensure we had the life she wanted. I wanted to tell her that love wasn't about dominance, about who had control. It was about partnership, about respect, about loyalty. But what was the point? She had already decided. I swallowed the lump in my throat and took a deep breath. I see. That's all I said. And for the first time, she looked uncertain. That's it, she asked, almost irritated by my lack of reaction. What else is there to say? I met her gaze, feeling something shift inside me. The pain was still there, but something colder was rising to the surface. Disgust. She expected me to break. She expected me to beg. But I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. I hope he was worth it, I said finally, voice steady. She tilted her head, smirking. Oh, he is. She had no idea what she had just done. This wasn't just the end of our relationship. This was the beginning of something else entirely. Something she would regret for the rest of her life. The silence in the house was suffocating. Not the comfortable silence we used to share, when we could sit together, lost in our own thoughts, and still feel connected. No, this was the kind of silence that felt like a void, like the ghost of something that had already died but hadn't been buried yet. She had left. Not just the conversation, but physically. She packed a bag with the casual ease of someone going on a weekend trip. No tearful goodbye, no hesitation. Just a quick glance over her shoulder before walking out, leaving the scent of her perfume lingering in the air. She didn't look back. She didn't have to. Because in her mind, she wasn't losing anything. I sat on the couch, staring at the spot where she had been standing, trying to make sense of what just happened. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the way she did it. Cold. Dismissive. Like I had been a placeholder in her life, a temporary arrangement until something better came along. You're just not man enough for me. The words burned. I didn't know what hurt more, her saying it or the fact that I had seen it coming and still ignored the signs. She had been pulling away for months. The excuses. The avoidance. The late nights where she just needed space. And yet, I had convinced myself that she was just going through something. That if I just gave her time, if I just tried harder, she would come back. But she hadn't wanted to come back. She had been waiting for the right moment to tell me it was over. Or worse, she had been waiting for me to figure it out on my own, so she wouldn't have to say the words at all. And now? She was probably in his arms. I felt my stomach churn at the thought. I had no idea who he was. Some guy at her gym? Someone from work? An old flame? None of it mattered. Because whoever he wasn't better than me, just new. Just different. And that's all she cared about. I reached for my phone out of instinct, about to text her, about to demand more answers, some kind of explanation that made this hurt less. But I stopped myself. What was I expecting? For her to apologize? For her to say, I didn't mean it, come back? No. She meant it. She meant every damn word. I exhaled, forcing my hands to unclench. My breathing was heavy, uneven. Anger was creeping in, but I shoved it down. I wasn't going to break. Not for her. Not over this. I needed air. I needed out of this house. Grabbing my keys, I left without thinking. I didn't know where I was driving at first, just that I couldn't sit in that house with the ghosts of our past staring back at me. Eventually, I found myself in the parking lot of a bar, one I hadn't been to in years. It was the kind of place I used to go with friends, back when I still made time for things outside of my relationship. Back when I still had an identity that wasn't wrapped around her. I walked in, hoping for some kind of distraction, but what I got instead was worse. The first thing I heard when I stepped inside was laughter. Loud, uninhibited, and familiar. Her laughter. And then another voice, his. I stopped cold, my heart slamming against my ribs. She was here. Not at some secret hideaway. Not in some private hotel room. She was here, in a place we had been to together, sitting at the bar like she didn't have a care in the world. And she wasn't alone. I didn't have to guess which man was him. I could tell by the way she leaned into him, by the way his hand rested on her thigh like it belonged there. I had never seen her laugh like that. Not in years. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just moving on. She was celebrating. Like leaving me was the best decision she had ever made. And worse, she wasn't hiding it. I turned to leave, my hands shaking, but then, oh my God, is that him? One of her friends had spotted me. The second the words left her mouth, my wife, no, ex-wife, turned in her seat. Her eyes met mine, and she smiled. Not a look of guilt, not an expression of regret. She smirked, as if she was enjoying this. My blood ran cold. Guess he finally got the message, she said, turning back to her drink. Her friend giggled, and the guy beside her just smirked, not even bothering to acknowledge me. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I had been humiliated before. I had been let down, betrayed. But this was a level of disrespect I had never experienced in my life. She wasn't just done with me. She wanted me to see how much better her life was now that I was gone. I could have caused a scene. I could have stormed over there, said something, demanded answers, made him regret touching my wife. But she wasn't my wife anymore. She made that clear. So instead, I did the one thing she wasn't expecting. I turned around and walked out. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry. Not because I was heartbroken. But because something inside me had shifted. I was done. Not just with her, but with the version of myself that thought I had to fight for someone who didn't want me. I had spent years giving my all to a woman who thought I wasn't man enough. But maybe being a man wasn't about proving anything to her. Maybe it was about proving something to myself. And for the first time in years, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I wasn't going to fight for her. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to walk away. For good. And one day, when she realized what she had lost, it would be too late for her to take it back. I woke up the next morning with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. No sadness. No anger. Just a cold, hard realization she wasn't worth my pain. For too long, I had poured everything into our relationship. I had given her my time, my effort, my loyalty, only for her to throw it away and mock me for not being man enough. Well, maybe I hadn't been man enough in the way she wanted. But I would be more than man enough to walk away and never look back. The first thing I did was wipe away every trace of her. I spent the morning collecting all her things, clothes, shoes, makeup, jewelry, anything she had left behind when she walked out. At first, I considered throwing them out or burning them in some dramatic act of defiance. But I realized that was still giving her power. So instead, I packed everything neatly into boxes, drove over to her sister's house, and left them on the porch with a single text message. Your stuff is at your sister's. Don't contact me again. No anger. No pleading. No long explanations. Just finality. I blocked her number before she could even respond. And then, I did something even more important. I took control of my life. For years, I had been the provider. She had always enjoyed the benefits, expensive dinners, weekend getaways, gifts, just because. I had never hesitated to spoil her, thinking that's what a good partner did. And how had she repaid me? By leaving me for someone else, flaunting it, and laughing about it. That ended now. I sat down and went through my bank accounts, my credit cards, and every financial tie we had ever shared. I canceled every card she had access to. I changed every password she knew. I moved my direct deposits into a private account she didn't know about. No more free rides. No more benefits of being with a man she considered weak. Let her new real man pay for her lifestyle. For years, I had shaped my world around her. I stopped going out with friends because she always needed me home. I quit my hobbies because she found them childish. I had become so focused on being the husband she wanted that I had forgotten to be the man I was. Not anymore. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to the gym, not for her, not to prove anything, but for me. I started lifting, running, pushing myself, not because I needed to be stronger for a woman, but because I needed to be stronger for myself. Afterward, I drove past a music shop and saw an old guitar in the window. I had always loved music, but she used to laugh at me when I played, saying it was cute that I tried. So I walked in and bought the damn guitar. Because I was done living for her approval. I was living for me now. I wasn't thinking about her that much anymore, not actively, at least. But life has a funny way of revealing the truth. A week after I cut her off completely, I started hearing things. A friend mentioned seeing her at a restaurant. This time, she wasn't laughing. She was arguing with her real man. A different friend, who had once been in our circle, told me she had been posting cryptic messages online. Some people don't appreciate you until you're gone. Not everything that glitters is gold. I didn't need to ask who she was talking about. But the best part? I didn't care. I had no desire to see her, to ask about her, to find out how things were going. For the first time in years, she wasn't the center of my world. And it was in that moment that I realized I was finally free. It started slowly. A message here. A rumor there. At first, I ignored it. I was done with her. I had wiped my hands clean of the mess she made. But life has a way of making sure you see the consequences of the people who wronged you, whether you ask for it or not. And her downfall? It was unfolding right in front of me. I was at the gym one evening when an old friend, Mark, walked up to me. Dude, you won't believe what I just saw. I sighed. If it's about her, I don't want to know. Mark shook his head, grinning. You might want to hear this one. He pulled out his phone, opened his social media, and there it was, a post from her, deleted minutes after it went up, but not before someone screenshotted it. A blurry, dimly lit picture of an empty restaurant table, a single untouched cocktail in front of her. The caption? Some people promise the world and leave you with nothing. I stared at it, unbothered. Guess her real man isn't working out the way she thought, Mark said, chuckling. I shrugged, tossing my towel over my shoulder. Not my problem. And it wasn't. But I won't lie, seeing that small glimpse into her unraveling life, it felt damn good. It was only a matter of time before she reached out. It started subtly, like she was testing the waters. A text popped up on my phone one night while I was watching TV. Hey, how have you been? I stared at it for a moment. Not I'm sorry. Not I made a mistake. Just a casual check-in, as if she hadn't burned everything to the ground. I blocked the number. If she wanted to pretend like nothing happened, I wasn't going to play along. A few days later, she tried again. This time, it was a longer message from an unknown number. I just wanted to talk. I feel like I made a mistake. I didn't realize how much I had with you until it was gone. Can we just meet for coffee? Please. I almost laughed. It was textbook. She thought she had upgraded. She thought she had won. But when the thrill wore off, she saw the truth. She threw away something real for something temporary. I ignored the message. I didn't know her a damn thing. A few weeks later, I ran into one of her friends. Not one of the ones who laughed at me, but someone who had always been neutral. We made small talk at first, but then she sighed. Look, I don't know if you care, but things aren't going great for her. I raised an eyebrow. Oh. She hesitated, then continued. That guy she left you for? Yeah, he's not exactly what she thought he was. Turns out, he's not so strong after all. He's broke. And worse? He's got another girl on the side. I nodded, unfazed. She chose him. Not my concern. Her friend looked down. I think she realizes she messed up. She's been talking about you a lot lately. About how she didn't appreciate what she had. I let out a small chuckle. Yeah? Well, life has a way of teaching people lessons. She bit her lip. She said she misses you. That made me pause for half a second. Then I smiled. That's too bad. And with that, I walked away. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need to throw anything back in her face, because nothing I could say or do would be as painful as the realization that she lost something she could never get back. She couldn't take the silence anymore. I had ignored her texts. I had blocked her number. I had shut every door she tried to reopen. But some people don't understand the meaning of being done. So she escalated. It was a quiet evening. I had just gotten home from work, feeling good, really good. The gym was becoming a second home. My job was better than ever, and for the first time in years, my mind was clear. Then the doorbell rang. At first, I thought it was a package, maybe a neighbor. But when I opened the door, I found her. She stood there, shifting her weight from foot to foot, her hands gripping the strap of her purse like she didn't know what to do with them. "Hey," she said softly, I searching mine for any sign of weakness. I gave her nothing. "What do you want?" She flinched at my cold tone, as if she hadn't been the one to humiliate me, to betray me, to laugh at my pain like it was some joke. I just wanted to talk," she said, forcing a smile. "We have nothing to talk about," I replied, my grip tightening on the doorframe. Her face fell. "Please. Just a few minutes." I let out a slow breath. I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing this for me, to end it once and for all. I stepped aside, allowing her in. But I didn't offer her a seat. She took in the house, the same house we once shared, but it wasn't hers anymore. She hesitated before speaking. "You look good." I know. That threw her off. She had expected the broken, desperate version of me, the man she had left behind. Instead, she found a man who had rebuilt himself. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I tilted my head. "For what, exactly?" She swallowed hard. "For everything. For how I treated you. For the things I said." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "And what changed? Didn't you leave for a real man?" Her eyes darted away, guilt creeping onto her face. "I was wrong," she admitted, voice small. "Oh." She let out a shaky breath. I thought he was something more. But he wasn't. He didn't take care of me. He didn't treat me the way you did. And I realized. I took you for granted. There it was. The truth. The realization. She had thrown away something real for something temporary. And now? She was trying to crawl back, hoping I'd still be waiting. I watched her fidget, waiting for me to say something, to forgive her, to take her back. But I wasn't that man anymore. "I appreciate the apology," I said finally. "But I don't need it." Her forehead creased. "What do you mean?" I don't need your regret to move on." "I already did." Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to protest, to say something that would change my mind. But there was nothing she could say, because this wasn't my pain anymore. This was hers. "I miss you," she whispered, eyes glossy with unshed tears. I nodded, completely unmoved. "I'm sure you do. Can we try again?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I studied her for a moment, then smiled. Not a bitter smile. Not an angry one. A free one. "No." She inhaled sharply. Just like that. Just like that. She stood there, frozen, as the weight of my rejection hit her like a freight train. Because in that moment, she realized she had lost me forever. And that was the real punishment.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.